Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Sports were pretty much back last night. We had game one of the NBA Finals, which was a good watch. I enjoyed it. It was just nice to have, the NBA back on my TV. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Celtics won by 18 last night. Definitely going to be getting into that game at some point. But I have to start with the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson didn't throw yesterday on the last day of voluntary OTAs. Sent people into a spiral. Oh, no, he's hurt. What are we going to do? And, it's fine. I promise things are going to be okay. It's like, I promise. It's not a big deal. Okay, I've seen plenty of guys make an attempt to rehab back from labrum tears, and there are days where you're just sore. That's just kind of the way that it goes, but didn't matter for Colts Twitter. Some people were hitting the big red button that says only hit in case of emergency, and then those people were later fined for hitting the red button when it wasn't an emergency. This isn't a big deal. His shoulder was sore. He didn't throw. Like, there's no need for him to push it right now. So he didn't throw yesterday. Not a big deal. Anthony Richardson was, of course, asked about his shoulder yesterday after practice. Here is what he had to say.
I'm good. Just a little soreness. I've been dealing with soreness since I started throwing. It's just my shoulder. But it's hard to listen to the trainer sometimes. They're like, nah, you got to sit out for a day. I don't want to sit out, but it's part of the health journey. So I'm just rocking with them and just listening.
Is that something they told you to expect after everything?
Oh, yeah. We're actually surprised it's only been one day like this. Everything's been smooth sailing so far. And luckily it was the last day. So, we're not too worried about it. And we're just trying to keep it going.
You sort of made it clear. You sort of pushed this process, haven't you?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they've tried to hold you back, but you pushed it. So this is not, again, surprising to you?
Yeah, nothing to worry about. Dealt with this before. Normally I just ice up and just go back at it again. But, they said there's no need to try to rush out there for the last day, when we got the season coming up. So I got 6 weeks to, keep practicing and keep throwing and just keep getting my shoulder healthy.
So what are you doing right now? Just more ice, or is there anything more you have to do?
Nah, about the same thing. Just an extra rest day. Honestly, that's pretty much it.
That was Anthony Richardson on why he didn't throw yesterday at the final day of Colts voluntary OTAs. Once again, this is not a big deal. It wasn't. And obviously, Anthony Richardson was asked several questions about his shoulder. Obviously, I have to talk about it today because he is the starting quarterback and he does have a lengthy injury history. But here's the thing. You heard his response there. He doesn't seem concerned about it based off of everything that he said. The medical staff doesn't seem very, very concerned about it. And in addition to throwing questions at Anthony Richardson about his shoulder, they also asked Colts head coach Shane Steichen about Anthony Richardson's shoulder. And he said the thing that should bring peace to all of us. Here's what Shane Steichen had to say about Anthony Richardson not throwing the football yesterday.
Yeah, rest assured, if we played on Sunday, he'd be starting. He just had some soreness in his arm, so we're just precautionary reasons, just held him out today.
If yesterday had been Sunday and they had played a game, Anthony Richardson would have played. That's all that we need to know. He's fine, okay? He's fine. Like, hearing Shane Steichen say that if yesterday had been game day, Anthony Richardson would have played. Like, that's the thing that matters to me. This isn't some major injury. Okay, they held him out for precautionary reasons. Anthony Richardson said in his response that they're kind of surprised that this is the first day that they've had to hold him out, right? And look, this is the right thing to do. If there's any time to hold a guy out, it's June. Like this is the time to hold someone out. Honestly, unless someone is 100% healthy, they shouldn't be participating in voluntary practice because that's what this past week has been. They held Michael Pittman out after he banged knees with somebody for precautionary reasons. Alec Pierce didn't practice much this week because somebody stepped on his foot and it was a little sore. So guess what? They're like, Alec Pierce, don't worry about it. This is voluntary practice. It's not a big deal. Okay, it's not a big deal that Anthony Richardson didn't throw yesterday. Okay? Now, look, I've seen multiple guys just throughout playing baseball into college and all that. I've seen multiple guys work their way back after tearing their labrum. It's a very common injury for guys who throw the ball It's just for, consistently. It's just the way that it goes. And look, you can't throw the ball for months. And when you finally can start throwing again, it is completely normal to be sore. In fact, it's abnormal to not be sore. Okay, because like there's muscles in your shoulders that haven't been worked in months. And then you go out and you throw the ball, 100 times. Like your shoulder's going to be sore. It's just the way that it works. This is part of working your way back from a labrum tear. Right. And I know that Colts fans are scarred after the whole Andrew Luck fiasco. Okay, but this is normal. Don't freak out. This is not a big deal. He's going to be ready for week 1. Should be. Right? Based off of everything that they've told us. He should be fine. He's going to continue to throw between this break between voluntary OTAs and actual minicamp. He's fine. He's going to be okay. Now, he wasn't the only one who fielded questions from the media yesterday. Leatu Latu met with the media yesterday, and man, I'm doing my best to not become overly excited about this guy. I like him. And I'm fully prepared to lead the Leatu Latu bandwagon after seeing his college tape where he dominated the Pac-12, which was arguably the best conference in college football last year. And also after listening to how he talks in his interviews. He was asked yesterday a pretty normal question for a rookie. He was asked the things that he's been learning so far throughout rookie minicamp and so far through, voluntary OTAs. And here's what Leatu Latu had to say about what he's learned so far.
At times, moves will work crisp out here, but there's times where, I feel like it works crisp, but they're still latched onto me. So now I got to figure out a way where I can, use their momentum or use my momentum and shift their hands off me or try to reduce some type of surface level in my body. So I've just been, in the film room trying to watch how to, beat certain tackles off certain sets. Because everyone's talented out there. Everyone's so good. I mean, from the top down. And it's just a blessing I get to go up against them every day.
That was Leatu Latu on the things that he's learning so far throughout, the offseason, his first offseason in the NFL. And I enjoy watching players develop. I enjoy watching people figure things out. It's why I watched the Pistons play basketball this year. I wanted to see if Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey would figure anything out. They didn't. But that's part of why I enjoy watching rookies and listening to rookies in the NFL, especially during these voluntary OTAs in these early stages. We can kind of get a feel for where they're at because there's always a learning curve anytime you go up a level in competition. Last week, I played some audio of A.D. Mitchell, the new Colts receiver who was drafted in the second round out of Texas. I played audio of him talking about how he's trying to learn and get better. And I thought Leatu Latu's response was different from what A.D. Mitchell said. Okay, you can tell not just in this response, but in all of his responses to the questions that Leatu Latu fielded yesterday, that he's detail-oriented, right? Somebody asked him yesterday about what his plan was going forward, for the time between now and the start of minicamp. That was, they asked Anthony Richardson a similar question as well. And when Anthony Richardson was asked, his response was he was still trying to figure out where he and the wide receivers were going to go to work on routes and timing and all those things. Like he didn't have a plan yet. Meanwhile, Leatu Latu lays out a full description of what he's going to do. He seems like a guy who's prepared. He seems like a guy who's very detail-oriented, which is important. And listening to his response yesterday, you can tell that he is a technician of a pass rusher. Okay, his response was all about his moves and the things that are working and the things that aren't working. He didn't mention anything about athleticism or, he mentioned a little bit of stuff on talent there at the end, but most of what he said was about how he has to evolve his moves and how he has to change things so that he can win at the line of scrimmage, right? You can also tell that he loves football. Like you can hear the excitement in his voice, which is a good thing. It seems like he wants to be here in Indianapolis. And when it comes to him learning, I'm very intrigued to see how good of a start he gets off to, right? Because the selling point on him coming out of UCLA was that he's ready to go right now. And so I'm excited for him. I think he's going to be a good player. I think he's going to be a really good player. And I can't wait to see how he looks week 1. I can't wait to see how he looks when they put the pads on during actual mini camp. Can he win at the line of scrimmage? Can he do all those things? Because it didn't sound like he was athletically overwhelmed at all, which I think was I wouldn't say the concern, but that was the thing that I wanted to hear about, heading into voluntary OTAs, because I think that's the biggest leap for these guys, right? Like, how you're coached and like the technique on things is usually pretty similar. The question is, can you make the athletic leap? And the last thing that you want to hear a rookie saying is, geez, man, like all these guys are more athletic than I am. My guys, like that's the last thing that you want to hear. We didn't hear that from Latu. It was a very technical answer in terms of how he plans on getting off blocks. And I think all in all, that is a good thing. I think that's a great thing. And so in addition to Leatu Latu and Anthony Richardson taking questions yesterday, Shane Steichen, of course, also took questions. And it's kind of funny. His media availability was short. It was like 3 minutes. And like the first minute and a half or so, the first minute and a half or so that Shane Steichen is taking questions, it's all about Anthony Richardson. And it's the same question over and over and over again, just phased in different terms. It was all about Anthony Richardson. How's his shoulder? Did you expect this? What's the plan going forward? Like all that kind of stuff. And, Shane Steichen seems like a guy who's serious, but also kind of relaxed. Like he seems like he's pretty willing to stand in front of, the media and answer questions and do those things. And, he was annoyed yesterday. It is just funny. You can hear the angst in his voice of like, can you idiots ask me any other question? I've told you that Anthony Richardson's fine. Leave it alone. And eventually they moved off of the Anthony Richardson stuff. And they're like, how was camp as a whole? Because, yesterday was the last day. And one of his responses was very interesting. And, I think if you took a poll from the outside world and you asked people if the Colts are a good organization, I think people would say yes, because it seems like the players like being here by the way that the Colts re-sign everyone. And I know that this has been a talking point. I've been majorly pushing for the Colts to go out in free agency and be more aggressive. And Shane Steichen made a point yesterday about the advantage of bringing everybody back. Here is Shane Steichen on the advantages of having everybody back from last year.
Well, I think you can see the communication and the chemistry with the guys. We signed a lot of our guys back, which I think that's a bonus, and I think that's a plus for us. Sometimes you get so many new faces in here, and then you got to recreate the communication piece of it. Guys know the standard, guys know how to operate, and I think that's going to pay dividends come September and in the fall.
And it's very true. And that is going to help the Colts early in the season. Obviously, I think we see this in college basketball a lot. The team that brings back the most guys tends to get off to the best start. While the team that brings in a bunch of transfers or new freshmen, they can start a little bit slower because you have to learn your teammates. You have to build that chemistry. You have to know when and where guys are going to cut, just like quarterbacks have to learn how quickly receivers run routes and all of those different types of things. And you have to learn the new language of the offense and all the things that, I don't fully understand. But there's a lot to learn when you move to a new place. Colts don't have to do any of that. They don't have to onboard anybody, right? Like that should help them get off to a good start this year. And yes, preseason games and things of that nature like help you build chemistry, but it's nothing like the real thing. In week 1, I expect to look around the league and for the Colts offense to be ahead of a lot of other teams, especially the Houston Texans, who they play in week 1, because the Texans added a huge piece in Stephon Diggs, right? And I know that the Colts added A.D. Mitchell, but Michael Pittman's going to be the primary target early in the season, and Josh Downs is going to have his fingerprints all over the offense, and Jonathan Taylor's going to have a major role in the offense as well. So when it comes to the Colts, like A.D. Mitchell, bring him in slowly. Like they have that luxury, right? And in a season where the Colts can't really afford to give away any games, the continued chemistry from last year should help them. Okay, I'd be willing to bet that at the end of voluntary OTAs, the Colts are ahead of a lot of other NFL teams right now because they're only having to bring rookies up to speed. Everyone else knows what's going on, what the standard is, what the playbook looks like. And that could be a big advantage for the Colts in the first few weeks of the season. Despite that slight advantage to start the season, I still wish the Colts were more aggressive in the offseason. Okay, it's not about being the best in September. Okay, like you don't you don't get to hoist a trophy for going 4-0 in the month of September. It's about being the best in January and February. So I'd be willing to give up some of this early in the year team chemistry for a better overall team later in the season. So Colts should hopefully get off to a good start because of this boost in camaraderie. The house is not on fire. Anthony Richardson's going to be fine. Relax, Colts fans. I am so ready for minicamp. I'm ready to see what they look like when they actually put the pads on, because that's when you figure out who's good, who's not, and all of those different types of things. Dallas Mavericks did not look good last night, but they're going to be fine. I'm not worried about it. Game 1 of the NBA Finals. I'm going to talk about that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
And you can get it online. Go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6580. That's 800-583-6580.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Mavs Celtics game 1 happened last night. Mavs are going to be fine. Okay. Honestly, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I was right going into game 1. Okay. I picked the Celtics. I said that they'd cover the 6.5. I said that they'd probably win by double digits. Okay. If you want to know what's going to happen before it happens, tune into this show right here because I'm telling you what's going on. I am. Last night, I think the game felt uglier than what it was. Okay. I don't think the game was as bad as what people are going to make it out to be. Look, the Boston Celtics are a good basketball team. Okay. The Boston Celtics, top to bottom, better team than Dallas. They are. Okay. I've said that the entire way. The reason why I picked the Mavs in 6 is because they had the best player in the series. And the Mavericks came out in the first quarter, and I thought they looked a little tight, some turnovers, not really sure what to do. I think part of that had to do with what Boston's game plan was on defense. I thought that they threw in some wrinkles that Dallas probably didn't expect. They cross-matched. They put Jason Tatum on Gafford to start, and I think that kind of threw Dallas for a bit of a loop, and it was interesting, right? And while the Mavericks came out tight, Boston Celtics came out hot, and that's the way that it goes sometimes. The Celtics won the first quarter by 17 points. They scored 37 points to the Mavericks 20. In the last 3 quarters, the Celtics outscored the Mavs by 1. Okay, the Mavericks won the third and fourth quarter. So winning the fourth quarter, not as big of a deal, right? Because with about 5 minutes left, all the starters got pulled. But even up to that point, like the Mavs were playing even with Dallas. And in the third quarter, Dallas goes on a big run. They expend all this energy. They cut the lead down to 8. Kyrie Irving, wide open 3 that could have cut it down to 5, and he missed. And then Celtics timeout. They come out of the timeout and they respond with a big run, push the lead right back up to like 16 or 17. And that was it. And that's what good teams do. It is. But I don't expect the Celtics to outscore the Mavericks by 17 points in the first quarter to start every game. Okay, if that happens, then sweep for Boston. But that's not going to continue to happen. Boston won that game because of their hot shooting in the first quarter. They were 7 of 15 from 3 at the end of the first quarter. Like they just hit a barrage of 3-point shots. And sometimes when you play a team like Boston who takes as many threes as they do, that's going to happen. And when that happens, you can't start slow. You can't only score 20 points. Okay, so I think maybe, Dallas was nervous. It was their first NBA Finals game for all of them, minus Kyrie Irving. If you pick the Mavericks to win the series, if you took my advice and you pick the Mavericks to win the series, don't freak out. Okay, that might be the theme of the show. Don't freak out about Anthony Richardson not throwing yesterday. Don't freak out if you pick the Mavericks to win the series. Like they did the same thing in game 1 against the Thunder. Okay, the Dallas Mavericks lost to the Thunder on the road in game 1 of that series by 22. And they won that series in 6 games. When you look at the Dallas Mavericks run this postseason, they lost game 1 against the Clippers. They lost game 1 against the Thunder. They won game 1 against Minnesota, to be fair. And then they lose game 1 against Boston. This is not out of the ordinary. Okay, they've gotten blown out in 3 out of their 4 game 1s. That's just the way that this team operates. Don't know why. Do I like it? No, not really, but that's who they are. And then they put together some adjustments for game 2, and then they play better. I think Jason Kidd and Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle had this very similar trait of game-to-game adjustments they're good at. Like that's kind of where most of their adjustments come into play. Whereas in-game, it can be a little dicey. But here's the thing. When you have Luka Doncic, your in-game adjustments don't have to be great because you have a guy that is that good and that talented. So this is a position that the Mavericks have been in before. They're going to go back. They're going to watch the tape. They might be doing it right now. They'll make some adjustments and be better in game 2. They'll have an NBA Finals game under their belt. So I don't think that they'll be as tight. I think they'll come out and throw an absolute haymaker to start in the first quarter of game 2, right? Like that's how they've operated under Jason Kidd in the playoffs. Okay, there's a reason why the Mavericks haven't lost back-to-back games in these playoffs. Okay, if you listen to the show yesterday, the result of last night's game isn't surprising, but some surprising things did happen. So I actually have a list of outliers in game one last night. Okay, there were several things that I thought happened in game one last night that were out of the ordinary. Let's start with the winning team, the Boston Celtics, because some things, they did some things that I just don't think are going to continue to happen. For example, Porzingis was 8 of 13 from the floor. He scored 20 points in 21 minutes, and he had some tough shots on the road to that. He scored 18 of his 20 points in the first half. And we saw Dallas make a slight adjustment. They got more physical with Porzingis, and his effect went away a bit. Okay, now look. Kristaps Porzingis is a good player. He's going to make an impact in this series on both offense and on defense. He's going to score. He's going to block shots. But he's not going to continue to be as efficient as he was last night. Sometimes taking a month off can be good. Certainly seemed to be good for Porzingis last night, right? But I don't think he's going to continue to shoot 62% from the floor. Okay, another outlier, Peyton Pritchard, off the bench for Boston. Played 19 minutes, if I remember correctly. Didn't make a shot. He was 0 of 7 from the floor. And he's a good scorer off the bench for the Celtics. He's going to get it going at some point. Moving on from there, I thought that the lack of aggressiveness from Jason Tatum was weird. Didn't have to be great in game one because Jaylen Brown and Porzingis and all their shooters really had it going. You know, it was really just an impressive game from Boston as a unit. I mean, like when your leading scorer only scores 22 points and you win by 17, like that speaks to your team as a whole. And so I thought as a whole, they look good, but I don't expect for everybody to play that well every night for Boston. Like that's going to change. And we're going to hit a point in this series because like Boston's not going to do that every night. They aren't going to win handily. It's not going to happen. Things are going to change at some point where the Celtics need Jason Tatum. And that is kind of the question around Boston. It's when games get tight, does Boston have the horses in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum that can pull it out at the end? Now, last night when the Mavs cut the lead down to 8, we saw Tatum really assert himself a little bit more. Him and Jaylen Brown, they both got downhill. They got to the free throw line. Throughout this series, though, there are going to be moments like that where Jason Tatum has to assert himself. You know, he can't turn into game one Tyrese Halliburton in those moments where you just don't really know where he's at. So that's the last outlier. I thought everything else for Boston, for the most part, was pretty normal. Okay, like the way that Boston played is what we're going to continue to see from them. They're going to beat guys off the dribble. They're going to get to the rim. They're going to kick it out, and the ball's going to swing, and they're probably going to get an open three. That's what they do. Brad Stevens has done a beautiful job of putting that team together, and that's what their offense has been all year. Defensively, they're as good as everyone. They held Dallas to 89 points last night. Like, I think that speaks to their ability to defend, but they're not going to continue to hold the Dallas Mavericks to 89 points. It's not going to happen. The Mavericks were 7 of 27 from three-point range. That's not going to continue. PJ Washington, who's a good shooter, Derek Jones Jr., who's been a good shooter, and Kyrie Irving combined to be 1 of 10 from 3. That's not going to continue to happen. They're going to shoot the ball better than that throughout the playoffs because they've shot the ball better than that all year, and they've shot the ball better than that throughout the playoffs in general, right? Like, you know, they might have been nervous or the week-long break maybe ruined some rhythm. Either way, I expect them to shoot the ball better in game 2 and through the rest of the series. I also expect for Kyrie to actually show up and to consistently play. He didn't take a shot in the fourth quarter, and he played about 6.5 minutes. Okay, Kyrie got off to a slow start, right? He only scored 12 points last night. He scored 6 points in each half. That's not going to continue. He finished with 12 points on 6 of 9 shooting from the floor. Okay, and he was 0-5 from 3. That's not going to continue either. Okay, he's too good of an offensive player to be held down like this, especially if he continues to get the looks that he got last night. I thought he missed some open shots. I mentioned earlier he had an opportunity to cut the lead down to 5 on a wide open 3, and he just missed it. Sometimes that's what happens. Here's the biggest outlier, though. Kyrie only scoring 12 points. That's not going to continue. And Luka Doncic only had 1 assist. And the Mavericks as a team only had 9 assists. Part of that was that they missed open looks. As I mentioned, they were 7 of 27 from three last night. And the other part of it was how the Celtics defended Dallas. Okay, Boston gave Luka the Nikola Jokic treatment in game 1. Okay, Boston gave Luka the Zach Edey treatment, the treatment that Zach Edey got against UConn. Okay, they said, Luka, you can score as much as you want. We aren't going to allow you, though, to score 30 because he's going to get 30 because he's just that good of a player. We're not going to allow you to score 30 and get 12 assists. They stayed home. And there were these weird moments where Luka would beat a guy off a dribble, or he'd get downhill coming off of a screen, and he would continue to go, and then he would look up and he'd be like, where's the help? Like, he would look to pass, kind of like Halliburton against the Knicks some. Like, Halliburton would get into the lane, and instead of looking to score, he was looking to pass the ball out. That's what Luka – there were some moments last night where Luka did that. And the help just never came from Boston. And I think that we're going to see an adjustment from Luka in his mentality, especially if the Celtics continue to deploy that type of defense on Luka, right? I think we'll see Luka be like, look, if you're going to let me score 50, then that's fine. Let me go score 50. Okay? Look, you can chalk up this game 1 loss for Dallas to shooting variance in the first quarter, because after the first quarter, the game was even. Okay, Boston only outscored Dallas by 1 point in the second, third, and fourth quarters. Okay, I still think we have a great series in store for us. I think game 2 on Sunday is going to be great basketball. Can't wait. I think that game's on at 8:30. Not too sure on that one, but I can't wait for it. Game 2 in Boston is going to be electric. And OC weighing in here. OC said, you and Dan should apologize to Porzingis on the air. I never said anything bad about Porzingis that I can remember, at least. Dan said that Porzingis has bad eyes. I don't even know what that means. Okay, I not saying that Dan's wrong, but I don't know what that means. I just remember watching Porzingis in Dallas. I think that, look, Porzingis has worked on his game, right? He shows up in New York. He has the injuries. The Mavericks trade for him. He and Luka play together. It doesn't go super great, and part of that was Porzingis couldn't post up. That is something that he has added to his game. Like, when he was playing in Dallas, he was just a 7'3" guy who could shoot and anchor a defense, and he still is those two things. But he ends up in Washington, and you could have argued that last year he should have been an all-star. He was good in Washington last year, and part of that was because he has developed his post game. And when you look at Boston and you look at why Porzingis makes them so tough, is exactly what he did last night. He got a smaller defender on him, and he hit shots over the top, and he posted up, and he did all those things. And, like, he's still going to have opportunities to do that. He's still going to continue to score off of those looks. If you're Dallas, though, I think you're content if Porzingis posts up 12 times a game, right? Because that's just not how the Celtics want to operate. The Celtics want to drive, kick, ball swings, open corner 3. That is what Boston wants to do. And when you're playing against offensive teams, or teams that are as good offensively as Dallas and Boston, you have to give something up. And I think if you're Dallas, I will give up Kristaps Porzingis taking 15-footers over 6'8" Josh Green. If you're Dallas, I think that's the thing that you want to give up. Just like if you're Boston, like, you know that you either, like, there's something that you have to give up if you're Boston as well. And in game 1, they chose to say, hey, you know what, Luka, if you want to score 50, that's fine. We aren't going to let you, drive and kick and let all the other guys score, right? So Boston elected to give up Luka getting shots at the rim, and it works for them. Dallas tried to take away, the rim, and that didn't really work either, because then, Boston got into their drive and kick stuff. So teams are going to adjust. Game 2 is going to be good. Can't wait. Should be an awesome game 2 on Sunday night. Another game that should be awesome tonight. The Fever play the Mystic tonight. They're on the road. Lynn Dunn joining the Dan Dockett show at 1 o'clock today. Can't wait to hear everything that she has in store after all the drama that has ensued from the WNBA over the past week. Really looking forward to that interview. Lynn Dunn's always great on Dan's show. Rob Dibble also going on Dan's show today to talk about Dan Hurley potentially leaving UConn for the Lakers job. And he's got his horse racing guy coming on at 1:30. So from 1 to 2 o'clock, man, we're loaded up on the Dan Dockett show today. But the Fever, Mystics tonight, 7:30. I'm excited. This could be the start of something important. I'm going to tell you what that thing could be when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Drivers, drafts, Dan Dockage, maybe even your dad. Friday, June 14, 12 to 3. Give your job the shaft. Beat my score or make an early reservation for a chance to win a VIP meet and greet package. Make your reservation at back9golf.com.
Hello, it's me, the designer jeans in your closet, the back of your closet. What am I doing here? Would you keep caviar in the back of your fridge with the ketchup and old milk? Yeah, I don't think so. So what happened to us? I mean, have you seen my label? I used to summer in the Hamptons and now I'm stuck behind a pair of sweats. Sure, I never really fit you quite right, and one of my pockets is so small you can't even squeeze your hand into it, but it's all about the look. And I look good. I need to get back out on the scene so I can be seen. You know, going to fancy parties, getting expensive iced coffees, Sunday fun days, okay? So take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create new jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff. Create jobs.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indies Sports Ticket. Colts fans in disarray after Anthony Richardson doesn't throw yesterday. Mavs lose game 1 of the NBA Finals. They're going to be fine. Game 2 of that is on Sunday night. Should be a good game. It's a game I'm tuned in for. It's a game that I'm excited for. And something else I'm excited for, the Indiana Fever play basketball tonight. The Fever play on the road in Washington against the Mystics tonight at 7:30. And there's a major topic of discussion on the Fever is how much rope do they have until we get bored with them because they aren't very good? Like, at what point do they have to start winning games? And it's a fair question. It's a question that I have raised. It's a question that Dan and I have discussed on his show from noon to 3, which you can listen to if you download that Indy Sports Ticket app. And it's a real question because, look, the Fever are 2-9. Like, that's not a fun basketball team to watch. They've gotten blown out on multiple occasions. And I did some research last night. I sat down. I was like, okay, why do they keep getting blown out? Like, what's the thing that keeps happening? Why isn't Caitlin Clark, playing better than what I think we all expected her to? Like, she's still the leading scorer for the Fever. She's still the best rookie in the WNBA this season, but it's not translating to them winning games, and the Fever should be winning games. Kelsey Mitchell was the number 2 overall pick 2 years ago. Aaliyah Boston was the number 1 overall pick last year. And then, of course, Caitlin Clark, the number 1 overall pick this year. So I started looking at that brutal schedule, 11 games in 20 days, which is just absurd. 8 of the Fever's first 11 games have come against a team that is currently in the top 5 of the standings for the WNBA. Tony East on Wednesday, who covers the Fever as well as the Pacers, he came on my show on Wednesday, as he always does, at 11:20. And he said that before the WNBA started, this is a guy who's been watching the league for the past several years now. Before this year started, people would have projected for the Connecticut Sun, the New York Liberty, and the Seattle Storm to be the 4 best teams in the league. 8 of the Fever's first 11 games have come against a team that's currently in the top 5 of the standings. And I believe that all 8 of those games are against the Fever, the Sun, the Liberty, the Storm, or the Aces. Like, those were kind of supposed to be the 4 teams. And that's just a tough way to start the season, especially with a relatively new group. Okay, Lynn Dunn, who's going to be on Dan's show today at 1 o'clock, the general manager of the Indiana Fever. She has mentioned that they've brought in some key free agents that are seeing the floor more. They've got, Caitlin Clark, who's obviously a large piece of what they're doing. And there's like an adjustment period that has to happen. I was talking about the Colts earlier and how they have this advantage because they've brought everybody back and they don't have to teach new things to several players. They just have to get the rookies caught up to speed. The Fever have to deal with that. And not only are they dealing with getting everybody acquainted with one another and getting everybody acquainted with the style at which they want to play basketball, but they're also playing against the best teams in the league with little to no practice time. Okay, 11 games in 20 days is brutal, especially when you're playing against competition like this. Now, they've hopefully settled in some. Okay, I would like to think that the first quarter of the season is plenty of times to get acquainted to new things, new teammates, new philosophies, new coaches, all those different types of things. And hopefully they've settled in. And as they are entering an easier part of their schedule, because an easier part of their schedule is on its way. Tonight, they play the Mystics, who are 0-10, haven't won a game all year. They're on the road, games on national TV on ION. I didn't know what this channel was. I found out that I do get it, though, so I'll probably turn that on and keep track of everything that happens as this season goes on. Now, looking at the future schedule, because as I said, they're entering this easier part. 7 out of their next 9 games for the Fever are against other teams that are not one of the 5 best teams in the league. So they're playing the bottom 7 teams in the WNBA going forward. This is their opportunity to turn the tide a little bit when it comes to the Fever and people wanting to watch them play, and for the WNBA as well. So much of the Caitlin Clark WNBA coverage has not been about basketball. Okay, it hasn't been about Asia Wilson of the Las Vegas Aces. It hasn't been about how well Caitlin Clark is playing. It hasn't been about any of that. Okay, it's been about drama and non-basketball related things. The latest news, the chick that body checked Caitlin Clark, they're saying that she was harassed because a single reporter tried to ask her questions on the street. Like, welcome to being an interesting league. I'm sure LeBron gets stopped all the time. I'm sure cameras follow him around. Okay, I'm sure Kevin Durant gets stopped, so on and so forth. That's just what happens when people actually pay attention to your league. WNBA, you wanted this. You wanted people to pay attention. And this is what happens when people actually care about your league. So these next 9 games for the Fever are important in turning the tide for interest in Caitlin Clark, and they're important for turning the tide on what the people are talking about when it comes to the WNBA. Because once again, I don't think that this amount of drama is sustainable. Right? At some point, people have to tune in to watch your games. Like, at some point, people have to tune in because the basketball is good. At some point, right? It's still early in the year. We're still early into the Caitlin Clark era here in Indianapolis. But at some point, like, you have to draw people's attention because of the basketball that you're playing, not for all the other crap that's going on in the WNBA. So if the Fever can find a way to go 6-3 or 5-4, shoot, if they can go 4-5, if they can go close to 500 with Caitlin Clark playing well, and no one's saying or doing anything stupid, nobody body checking Caitlin Clark when she's not looking, nobody slapping her in the face. Like, as long as nothing egregious like that happens, we could see people start to discuss the WNBA for the right reasons. I wouldn't say the right reasons. Well, let's say we could start seeing people talk about the WNBA for basketball-related reasons, right? Not because somebody body checked Caitlin Clark, not because somebody said that, Caitlin Clark has white privilege or anything like that, which would be a good thing. Because once again, people are going to get sick of the drama that has come with the WNBA so far. People are already sick of it. I know people who are like, I'm done. I don't want to watch. Like, if it's just going to be, the Kardashians, right? Like if it's just nothing but drama, like, why would I want to watch? So this is a stretch here for the Fever where they can show that they're a decent basketball team. They can show that the league is more than just drama. And I'm only including the Fever in this because, let's be honest, people aren't tuning in to watch the Chicago Sky. People aren't tuning in to watch the Las Vegas Aces. People aren't tuning in to watch the New York Liberty, as good as those teams are. People are tuning in to watch the Fever because people want to watch Caitlin Clark. Okay, so that's why I'm only including the Fever in this statement. Okay, if they can do that, if they can win some games, if Caitlin Clark can start bombing away and hitting some more 30-footers, then they should be fine. Okay, I think that would go a long ways in helping the league and just the coverage of it, because I don't think that people really want to talk about the drama. I think at some point people just want to talk about the basketball that is being played. So, Fever over this 9-game stretch starting tonight on the road against the 0-10 Mystics. Can they go 6-3? Can they go 5-4? Those are the things that we need to see from the Fever in order for the interest to stay at the level that it's at and perhaps even go up. Like, I think that if the Fever, turned in some good basketball performances, that people would be much more engaged and much more willing to watch, right? Like, look, most people, not all people, but there are a lot of people out there that don't watch games. They don't. They don't have the time. They have a job, they have kids, they have a wife, they have, whatever's going on in their life that makes it hard to sit down on a Friday night at 7:30 and watch the WNBA. So what do? They check the box score and they do all these different things. And because, like, other more important things in their life have their attention. If they start checking the box score and saying, oh, geez, Caitlin Clark had 25 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds, and the Fever won, that's pretty good. And then the next game, they check the box score again, and Caitlin Clark has, 21 points and 8 assists and 4 rebounds, and the Fever win again. Like, it starts to build momentum, and it starts to sit and register in people's minds to a point where it becomes appointment television. And that's what you want to be in the sports world. You want to be appointment television. That's why the NFL is so successful, because people, like, they know that Sundays are for football. Like the appointment is already made in their mind. And that only happens for the WNBA if Caitlin Clark figures it out and if the Indiana Fever can find a way to win some freaking basketball games. So that stretch starts tonight. Once again, Fever on the road taking on the Washington Mystics. You can watch that game at 7:30 on ION. I don't know what else they show on that channel. I just know that they've got the Fever, so I'll be tuned into that tonight. I also have an Indie Blogger Boy article update. Okay, last week, I usually do a segment on Fridays, not all the time, but sometimes. I call it Fun List Friday. If something happens in the news that gives me an idea for a fun list, then, I do a fun list. For example, last week we did the best chubby white athletes ever. And it was fun. And we did it because Luka Doncic, was a part of a Mavs team that won the Western Conference Finals. Now he's playing in the NBA Finals. That's why we did the list. Nothing like that happened this week, so I don't have a Fun List Friday. But last week for Fun List Friday, I did a second one where I listed the most ridiculous Indie Blogger Boy articles, and I have an update for you. Right, so last week, here were the headlines, and I'm going to continue to add to this list throughout the season. Last week, one of the headlines was Colts offensive line revitalized into one of the NFL's best front fives. And, that's wrong because, they listed all these stats out about how they didn't, allow very many sacks. But the reason why the Colts didn't allow very many sacks was because Gardner Minshew did a good job of getting the ball out of his hands on time. So there was that. And then there was another one called the Colts, quote, saved a lot of money on the Michael Pittman contract extension. And they didn't, because Pittman was always going to sign for around $20 million. His comments earlier in the week that I talked about yesterday, I think cover that. Another one was Colts predicted to have a breakout offensive star, and it's not Anthony Richardson. And they did a whole thing on Jelani Woods that was nonsense, to say the least. And then, oh man, this one's my favorite. And I've made a lot of jokes about it. If you've been tuning into the show, then you've gotten them. If you haven't, then here's your inside joke update. I can't read the headline without smiling, because it's absurd. The headline was, why Colts fans should keep an eye on running back Evan Hull. Evan Hull's the third string running back for the Colts. He has one career carry for 1 yard and one career reception for 6 yards. And it was just funny. I was like, come on now. Like, if we have to keep an eye on the third string running back for the Colts, then the Colts aren't going to be very good. That's what that means. And then there was another one that said Tyquan Lewis has become a reliable pass rusher, a guy who had 4.5 sacks last year, which was a career high. So I don't know about that. So, I was scouring the internet looking for the Colts blogs, and there's only one new article to add this week. The other ones were, they were fine. So after reading an article last week that was titled Tyquan Lewis has become a reliable pass rusher, there's an article headlined defensive lineman named as player Colts should consider trading. That was the title. And I open it, and it's a whole thing on why the Colts should trade Tyquan Lewis. So the guy who is now apparently a reliable pass rusher needs to be traded. I think it's funny, the hypocrisy of it. I make fun. Part of it is because, like, full disclosure, I used to be a blogger boy, not here in Indianapolis, but when I was in college and coming out of college, even when I moved up here, I wrote for a Miami Dolphins blog. With that being said, I never wrote anything like this, where one week I'm saying, Tyquan Lewis has developed into a good pass rusher, and then the next week saying something like, even though he's developed it into a good pass rusher, I think the Colts should trade him. Oh man, like, this is what we have to deal with in Indianapolis, and that's why you guys come here. That's why you listen to the Real Jonathan Smith Show from 10 to noon every day. That's why you listen to the Dan Dockett Show every day from noon to 3, because we're honest. We don't say absurd things like this just to grab your attention. We're just going to tell you the truth, and hopefully it's riveting enough for you. I'm going to continue to tell you the truth. I'm going to continue to tell you what's going to happen before it happens. When we come back here in about 5 minutes, hour 2 of the Real Jonathan Smith Show is coming your way.
Seasons change. Why not your tech? Upgrade now during the Dell Technologies Summer Sale event and save on select PCs like the XPS 16, powered by Intel Core processors. You'll be able to bring your most intensive projects to life with built-in AI, minimalistic design, immersive visuals, and cinematic audio. When you shop online at Dell.com/deals, you'll have access to exceptional tech and electronics plus free shipping on everything. Amazing prices await you for a limited time only at Dell.com/deals. That's Dell.com/deals.
We're going abroad for the first time in years, to Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
What is your emergency? My kid shot himself. All right, where's the wound, sir?
911, what's your emergency?
Please help. My son shot his brother. 911, what is your emergency? 911, please state your emergency.
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns.
It wasn't locked.
Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Azalea is my world. When I heard that she had a tumor, everything just became dark. When I came to St. Jude, I started to get back some light in my life.
On top of first-class best care, you will never receive a bill, so that you can focus on this child. The only thing we had to worry about was just keeping Azalea comfortable. St. Jude saved her life, and it saved us as a family.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Happy Friday. I'm so glad it's Friday, man. Love Fridays. I don't know what I'm doing this weekend. I have no idea. It doesn't matter. I just know I'm going to have a good time. Can't wait. I just cannot wait. So, just finished talking about the Fever. They're playing tonight, 7:30 on the road against the Washington Mystics. Lynn Dunn will be joining Dan's show today at 1 o'clock, GM of the Indiana Fever. I'm sure she's got thoughts on Caitlin Clark and just all the drama that has happened during the WNBA season so far, going back to last weekend when, that girl for the Chicago Sky body checked Caitlin Clark. So looking forward to that today at 1 o'clock. Something else that I'm really looking forward to is football season. I can't wait. Okay, Anthony Richardson didn't throw a practice yesterday for the Colts. When the news hit, some people hit the big red button that says, quote, hit in case of emergency only, end quote. And then those people were later fined for hitting that red button because it wasn't an emergency. This is not a big deal. Okay, it's not. The fact that he didn't throw yesterday, who cares? Okay, like we have to act like it's a big deal because it's a football-related topic, and football-related topics always do well and those things, but this is not a big deal. His shoulder was sore and he didn't throw. Makes sense to me. Okay, there's no need for him to throw a football right now if his shoulder's sore. Okay, it's June. We've got 3 months until the season. Why? Like, no need for him to push it right now. But obviously, Anthony Richardson was asked about his shoulder yesterday and why he sat out and why he didn't throw in those things. Here's what Colts starting quarterback Anthony Richardson had to say.
Yeah, I'm good. Just a little soreness. I've been dealing with soreness since I started throwing. It's just my shoulder, but it's hard to listen to the trainer sometimes. They're like, nah, you got to sit out for a day. I don't want to sit out, but it's part of the health journey. So I'm just rocking with them and just listening.
Is that something they told you to expect after everything?
Oh yeah, we're actually surprised it's only been one day like this. Everything's been smooth sailing so far, and luckily it was the last day. So, we're not too worried about it, and we're just trying to keep it going.
You sort of made it clear. You sort of pushed this process, haven't you?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they've tried to hold you back, but you pushed it. So this is not, again, surprising to you?
Yeah, nothing to worry about. Dealt with this before. Normally I just ice up and just go back at it again. But, they said there's no need to try to rush out there for the last day, when we got the season coming up. So I got 6 weeks to, keep practicing and keep throwing and just keep getting my shoulder healthy.
So what are you doing right now? Just more ice, or is there anything more you have to do?
Nah, about the same thing. Just an extra rest day. Honestly, that's pretty much it.
That was Colts starting quarterback Anthony Richardson on why he didn't throw yesterday. And why didn't he throw yesterday? Because he tore his labrum. Okay? It makes sense that his shoulder's sore. He went on the Pat McAfee show and said he hadn't even fully recovered yet. Like, of course, his shoulder's going to be sore, right? And here's the big thing in all of this. Shane Steichen was, of course, also asked about Anthony Richardson's shoulder, right? Because, he's the head coach and he's going to know better than anyone else. And here's what Shane Steichen had to say about Anthony Richardson's shoulder and why he didn't throw yesterday.
Yeah, rest assured, if we played on Sunday, he'd be starting. He just had some soreness in his arm, so we're just precautionary reasons, just held him out today.
Rest assured, if we were playing on Sunday, Anthony Richardson would be starting today. He was fine yesterday. He was fine, but it's June, and he hasn't fully recovered from a labrum tear, so they didn't let him throw. Not a big deal. The thing that matters is that if yesterday had been game day, Anthony Richardson would have played. They held him out for precautionary reasons, and that's the right thing to do because it's June. Okay, unless someone is 100% healthy, they shouldn't be practicing, okay? They've held guys out all week for more minor injuries than Anthony Richardson's sore shoulder coming off of a labrum tear, okay? Michael Pittman Jr. banged knees with somebody, and they held him out. They're like, all right, man, you're good. You're done. Somebody stepped on Alec Pierce's foot, and they held him out. Okay, those two injuries, they are way less impactful on someone than coming off of labrum surgery, okay? Shane Steichen said the thing that matters. If yesterday had been game day, Anthony Richardson would have played. They held him out for precautionary reasons, and that is the right thing to do. Once again, this is not a big deal. Okay, when I was in college, I had several teammates who tore their labrums. It is a pain in the butt injury to work your way back from. And when you can finally start throwing again, it's hard. It's difficult. Like, you don't work out the muscles in your shoulder for months, and then all of a sudden you're allowed to. And it is a slow grind back, and you're going to be sore sometimes. That's just the way that it works. It's completely normal to be sore. Completely normal to be sore. Okay? It'd be abnormal if Anthony Richardson was not sore. Okay? Here's what I think is happening, because I've seen Colts fans freak out a little bit about, the shoulder stuff and how he didn't throw yesterday and all the injury things. I think that the Andrew Luck stuff, the whole Andrew Luck fiasco, just scarred everybody. And now anytime anything happens bad, and anything bad happens to anyone for the Colts, we jump to this conclusion that they're lying to us and that they're keeping things from us and that guys actually aren't okay. I don't think that that's how teams always operate. Okay, I don't. Okay, if Anthony Richardson's shoulder was that bad, if it was truly something to be worried about, he wouldn't have thrown it all this week. His shoulder was sore. He didn't throw. Whatever. It happens. Don't freak out. It's not a big deal. Something that I do hope is a big deal, though, is that the Colts took Leatu Latu with the 15th overall pick. Latu talked with the media yesterday, and I got to be honest, I like the guy. I'm doing my best to not jump to these crazy conclusions, but I'm fully prepared to lead the Leatu Latu bandwagon after seeing his college tape and after listening to how he talks in interviews. I think he checks boxes, and I understand that, these interviews, they aren't the most interesting thing in the world. I understand that a lot of times guys just say what they're supposed to. But here's the thing. I think that's what you want as an organization. You want to draft guys and sign players that don't say stupid things. Okay, I think that that's what you want. And Leatu Latu doesn't seem like he's going to say stupid things. And he was asked yesterday about what he has learned so far during, voluntary OTAs and rookie minicamp.
At times, moves will work crisp out here, but there's times where, I feel like it works crisp, but they're still latched onto me. So now I got to figure out a way where I can, use their momentum or use my momentum and shift their hands off me or try to reduce some type of surface level in my body. So I've just been, in the film room trying to watch how to, beat certain tackles off certain sets. Because everyone's talented out there. Everyone's so good. I mean, from the top down. And it's just a blessing I get to go up against them every day.
That was Leatu Latu, Colts first-round pick, selected 15th overall, edge rusher out of UCLA. And I enjoy watching players develop. That's why I watch the Houston Rockets and the Detroit Pistons during basketball season. It's why I'm going to watch the Commanders this year, and it's why I'm going to watch the Bears and the Patriots, because they drafted quarterbacks. And it's why I'm excited to watch the Vikings, because I just find joy in watching athletes figure things out. Okay, I enjoy watching players develop, and that's part of why I enjoy listening to these rookies coming out of voluntary OTAs. That's why I like listening to them talk about things that they're learning, right? Because I think it can kind of help us project where we're going to see them get better, right? And, there's a learning curve. Anytime you go up a level in really anything, whether that's, going from college football to the NFL, whether that's going from high school football to college, whether that's going from, producing a radio show to hosting a radio show, like there's just things that you have to learn. There's a learning curve. And AD Mitchell was asked a similar question on, how are you planning on getting better? How are you getting better? What are you learning? And AD Mitchell's response and Leatu Latu's response, they were different. Latu's was a lot about just the competition and how much better defensive backs are and all these different types of things. And for Leatu Latu, his response was very detail oriented. It was a very much of like, this is where they're putting their hands and I need to do this. And like, how am I going to counter this? And he kind of starts working through the steps of how he's going to get off of blocks. And it's interesting. Like you can very much see why he's labeled as a pass rushing technician by the way that he answered that question. His response was all about his moves. He didn't mention anything about how more athletic the offensive tackles were. Maybe that's a red flag about the Colts offensive tackles. I don't know, but like it was never about these players are so much better. It was very much about himself. That tells me that athletically he feels like he's going to be fine. Okay? The question is, can he evolve his moves? And from what everybody said about his talent and how much of a quote-unquote technician he is when it comes to rushing the passer, I think he's going to be fine. He seems like he's detail-oriented. He was asked a question yesterday as well about, what is your plan between now and when mandatory minicamp starts? And, he gave a very detailed response. He was like, I know I'm going to California. He's like, it's all planned out for me. I got my recovery days. I know what I'm doing on this day. And he just kind of laid it all out. And meanwhile, when the Colts starting quarterback, Anthony Richardson, was asked that question, he doesn't even know where he's going. When Michael Pittman was asked that question, he doesn't know where he's going. And that is a bit of, an issue maybe for the offense. Like, I wish those guys were a little bit more on the same page. I'm sure that they'll figure it out here at some point. But I was very impressed with Latu and his responses to the media yesterday. I'm excited for him. Once again, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to lead this, I'm ready to lead this Latu bandwagon going forward. He sounds excited. Seems like he wants to be here, which is another important thing, that you want to draft in players. You want guys who want to be wherever they're at, because when guys get unhappy, that's when they start to play bad. Shane Steichen also took the podium yesterday. All his stuff was really funny. They're asking him all these questions about Anthony Richardson, and he's basically giving the same answer over and over and over again to the same question, saying, yeah, Anthony Richardson's fine. Can we please talk about anything else? And eventually, Colts media got there. And I mentioned Latu sounds like he likes being in Indy. And I think if you took a poll from people outside of Indianapolis and you asked, do you think that the Colts players like playing for the Colts? I think they'd all say yes, because it seems like everyone wants to be in Indianapolis because the Colts continue to re-sign everybody. And I know that this has been a talking point. I want them to be more aggressive in the offseason. I want them to try and go and get some free agents that can tilt games in their favor. They haven't done that. They're very content to just sign their own. And there are advantages to that. And Shane Steichen highlighted them yesterday.
Well, I think you can see the communication and the chemistry with the guys. We signed a lot of our guys back, which I think that's a bonus, and I think that's a plus for us. Sometimes you get so many new faces in here, and then you got to recreate the communication piece of it. Guys know the standard, guys know how to operate, and I think that's going to pay dividends come September and in the fall.
That was Shane Steichen on the advantages of re-signing your own. And I think we see this in college basketball all the time. The team that brings back the most returners tend to get off to a better start, while the other teams that bring in a bunch of transfers and freshmen, they tend to get off to slower starts, because you have to learn your teammates. You have to build that chemistry. You have to build that camaraderie. You have to know what your teammates are going to do. And the Colts, they don't have to do that. They don't have to build chemistry that much, right? Because the only guys that they're bringing in are rookies. And I think that is going to help the Colts going forward. Okay. Like, I think it's going to help them get off to a good start this year. Like, if you had to compare where the Colts are at compared to other teams across the NFL, they're further along because everybody, except for the rookies who've already been here for a while, like, they're all back. Like you don't have to bring anybody else up to speed. While teams like the Texans, who just brought in Stephon Diggs, like, they're having to catch him up. And yes, preseason games can help build that chemistry, but it's nothing like the real thing. Okay, in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, the Colts offense should be further along than most of the teams that they're playing, which gives them an advantage. Okay, and I know that the Colts added A.D. Mitchell, and you're probably saying, well, Jonathan, what about him? Like, he's going to see the field. And you're right, he is, but Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, like, those are going to be the main two guys that are the main targets of the offense. So excited to see how that develops. Here's the thing, though. Despite that slight advantage, which is important this year because this is a season where the Colts can't afford to just give away games. Every game that the Colts are expected to win, they need to win. If they want to win the division, and if they want to make the playoffs. Right? So, like, it is a big deal for the Colts this year. But for the future, like, I don't really care. Like, if you go, if having this extra camaraderie, makes you go, 3-1 to start the season as opposed to 2-2, I don't think it's that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. I would still wish the Colts were more aggressive in the offseason, because it's not about being the best in September. It's about being the best in January and February. So I'd be willing to give up some of this team chemistry for a better overall team later in the season. And chemistry is important. It's very rare to see teams gel quickly like we saw the Mavericks do during the season this year. That led to them obviously making the NBA Finals. Game 1 was last night. I'm going to talk about the Mavs and the Celtics. Game 1, what I saw last night, why if you're a Mavs fan or if you pick the Mavs to win or if you bet on them to win the series, you shouldn't be worried because what happened last night is pretty much exactly what I said would happen. I'm going to talk about that game when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Development. Visit our garden center today. And don't forget to check out our flyer on menards.com for all the great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
See website for details. Bills Happen is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Must be 18 years old. Not available in all states.
Honey, the credit card bill came and we're maxed out.
Great! Maxed out cards, rent is due, bills are piling up. We just need some extra cash to help us get by for a few weeks.
We should do what my brother did. He went to billshappen.com and got $3,000 the next day.
With our bad credit, I don't think so.
Billshappen.com is different. They are one of the largest personal loan networks. They can help people with all credit types get up to $5,000.
I'm sure there's a lot of paperwork.
Nope, my brother said it was easy. He did it right from his phone.
If you have a regular source of income, you can be approved for a loan for up to $5,000 in minutes, and your cash can hit your bank account the next day. BillsHappen.com's lenders have millions of dollars to lend, regardless of your credit history.
Great news! I went to billshappen.com and we will have our money as soon as tomorrow.
Wow, that is fast.
If you need extra cash, go to BillsHappen.com. That's BillsHappen.com. BillsHappen.com.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Make sure you head over to YouTube, search for Indy Sports Ticket, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. The live chats are awesome. We got people going at it right now in the chat about Shane Steichen. Just got done talking about some of his comments from the last day of voluntary OTAs yesterday. Talked Anthony Richardson's shoulder and all those fun things. Now, I want to talk NBA Finals Game 1, okay? Because last night, it was ugly. It was. But not as bad as what some people are going to make it out to be. The Boston Celtics are good. The Mavericks came out tight in the first quarter, and the Celtics came out hot. The Celtics won the first quarter by 17 points, 37-20. That was the score at the end of the first quarter. Boston came out. They shot the ball well, 7-15 from three in the first quarter alone. Porzingis comes in off the bench, is feeling it. And, it was just an outstanding first quarter by Boston and a rough first quarter for the Mavs. From that point on, the Celtics only outscored Dallas by 1. Okay, in the third quarter, the Mavs go on their big run. They cut the lead down to 8. Kyrie has an open 3 with a chance to cut the lead down to 5, and he missed it. Then Celtics responded with a huge run, and that was it. That's the way it goes sometimes. That's what good teams do. They respond when other teams make runs, but I don't expect the Boston Celtics to outscore the Dallas Mavericks by 17 points in the first quarter to start every game. Okay, Boston won that game because of their hot shooting in the first quarter. They got out to such a lead that, they were just kind of able to cruise the rest of the way. And, the Mavericks, they got off to a slow start, right? Like, this is a good offensive team that only scored 20 points in the first quarter. Like, that's not going to continue to happen. Maybe Dallas was nervous. It was their first NBA Finals game for all of them except for Kyrie Irving. So if you picked the Dallas Mavericks to win this game, if you pick them to win in 6 like I did, don't freak out. This is a recurring theme for the Dallas Mavericks. And the theme of the show is don't freak out. Like, don't freak out about Anthony Richardson not throwing yesterday. And don't freak out if you pick the Mavericks to win the series, because they're still going to win the series. Mavs in 6 is going to happen. I'm doubling down even after that horrendous performance from the Dallas Mavericks last night. Here's the thing with Dallas. This is a position that they've been in before. Okay, the Mavericks have lost 3 out of their 4 game ones in this playoffs. In fact, the Dallas Mavericks are 1-6 in game ones of playoff series under Jason Kidd. Okay, and they are 6-3 in game 2s, and they haven't lost a game 2 in these playoffs. Once again, this is a position that the Mavericks have been in before. They lost by 18 last night. Of all of their game 1 losses in this playoff run, that was the closest one. Okay, going back 2 series ago, they went on the road, game 1. They're playing against the Oklahoma City Thunder in front of a loud, crazy, intense crowd, and they lose by 22. And people went crazy, like, oh, no, like, oh, they lost by 22. The series is over. And then the Mavs responded, won game 2 on the road against the Thunder, went on to win the series in 6 games. Once again, this is a position that the Dallas Mavericks have been in before. They'll go back, watch the tape, they'll make adjustments, they'll be better in game 2. That's just how they've operated under Jason Kidd in the playoffs. Jason Kidd, very similar to Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle. He's at his best. We can go back, watch the tape, come back the next day, and then make adjustments from there. That's when Jason Kidd is at his best, and he has an opportunity to do that today and tomorrow. Mavs don't play again until game 2 on Sunday night. Right? That's how they've been. Like, there's a reason why the Mavericks have not lost back-to-back games in the playoffs this year. Okay, if you listened to the show yesterday, if you tuned into the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Twitter, follow us at Ticket 1430 to watch us there. Subscribe to Indy Sports Ticket on Twitter if you want to watch us there and be part of the chat. If you tuned in yesterday in any way, shape, or form, then you shouldn't have been surprised in what happened in last night's game. Because that's like what I thought was going to happen last night is exactly what happened. If you want to know what's going to happen before it happens, tune in right here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. And even though I was right and the Celtics covered and they won by double digits, like I said that they would yesterday, there were still some outliers. I thought there were several things that happened in game one that shouldn't happen again, that were out of the ordinary. So let's start with the winning team and run through some of these game one outliers of the NBA Finals. The Boston Celtics, even though they won in pretty good-looking fashion, they still had some things happen that aren't going to continue to happen. For example, Kristaps Porzingis scores 20 points in 21 minutes. He scored 18 of his 20 points in the first half. He came out, and the dude was hot. It's the way hoops goes sometimes. Okay, he was 8 of 13 from the floor. He hit some tough shots. I thought in the second half when the Mavericks were more physical with him, he seemed to struggle a little bit more. Here's the thing, though. The Celtics, top to bottom, are a better team than the Dallas Mavericks are. They just are. And Kristaps Porzingis is a large part of that. He's going to have an impact in this series. He's going to score because he's 7'3". He can step out to 30 feet and knock down a three. You know, he's become a good post-up player. But here's the thing. He's not going to continue to shoot 62% from the floor. That's not going to happen. It's not. If Kristaps Porzingis shoots 62% from the floor for the series, just hand him the finals MVP trophy. I mean, geez. That's not going to continue. He'll continue to have an impact because he's a good player, but I don't think he's going to continue to be dominant like that throughout the series. Peyton Pritchard didn't make a shot for Boston. That's going to change as well. Okay, like he's going to play better. He was 0 of 7 from the floor. He's a good scorer off the bench for the Celtics. I expect his production to go up in game 2 and through the rest of the series. Here's the thing that really stuck out, though. Here's the biggest outlier for Boston that I don't think is going to continue. There was a lack of aggressiveness from Jason Tatum. Now, look, he didn't have to be great last night in game 1 because Jaylen Brown was awesome and Kristaps Porzingis got hot, and all the other guys, the Al Horfords and the Derek Whites and the Drew Holidays and the Sam Hausers, those guys made open threes, right? And so when all those things go right, Jason Tatum doesn't have to go score 30. He doesn't have to do that, right? That's the benefit of playing for this team that Brad Stevens has constructed beautifully. They just, they fit very well, and it takes a lot of pressure off of Jason Tatum. But here's the thing. Everybody's not going to play well like that for the Celtics in every single game. It's not going to happen. And that has been my question around Boston. When things get tough, how do their two stars respond? How do Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown respond when it's, a 4-point game with 3 minutes left to go? Do they have the ability to separate? Do they have the ability to close the gap when we know that Luka and Kyrie Irving are going to be good down the stretch, and we know that they're going to generate good shots late in games? Now, I do think we saw something positive from Tatum last night in terms of answering that question. Last night, when the Mavericks cut the lead down to 8, we saw Jason Tatum assert himself a little bit more. He got downhill, got to the free throw line, made free throws, played a big role in pushing that lead back out to 16. Throughout this series, though, there are going to be more moments like that where Tatum has to assert himself. He can't turn into game 1 Tyrese Halliburton in those moments. We have to know that he's on the floor. He can't disappear and fade into the background. He can't lazily take sidestep contested threes. So that is the thing that I want to see going forward from Tatum. Is he going to continue to be aggressive when games are close, or is he going to be content to just kind of let this loaded Celtics roster lead the way? When it comes to Dallas, I thought they had a weird night. I did. I watched a lot of Mavericks ball this year. They're a good team. I think what we saw from the Celtics last night is what we'll continue to see from them, especially on the offensive end. Like, look, the Celtics are not hard to figure out. They're going to get to the rim off the dribble, then they're going to kick it out for threes when the help comes. That is what their offense has been all year. That's what it's going to continue to be, and that's what it's going to be in this series, because as good of a, defensive team as Dallas is, it's just hard to contain the dribble when it's Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, given their size and their skill. So that whole drive and kick thing is going to continue to work for Boston. Dallas just has to do a better job of rotating properly. We saw Dallas play a little bit of zone last night as well. Going to be interested to see if they continue to kind of throw that out there for random stretches. Defensively for Boston, they're as good as anyone, right? They held the Mavericks to 89 points last night. They're a good defensive team, but they're not going to continue to hold the Mavericks to 89 points. That's not going to happen. The Mavericks were 7 of 27 from 3. When you shoot 26% from three, you aren't going to win. Just ask IU fans, okay? PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr., and Kyrie Irving, they combined to be 1 of 10 from three. Like, they're going to shoot the ball better than that going forward. And look, they've shot the ball better than that during the regular season, and they shot the ball better than that during this playoff run. So, once again, chalk game one up to maybe it was nerves, maybe the week-long break ruined their rhythm a little bit. Either way, Dallas is going to shoot the ball better in game two. I thought they got some good looks that they just missed. I also expect for Kyrie Irving to be better in game two. He was bad in game one. Okay, Kyrie was held to 6 points in each half. Fourth quarter, he played about 6.5 minutes, and he didn't take a shot. He didn't score a point. Okay, he finished with 12 points on 6 of 9 shooting, and he was 0-5 from 3. He's too good of an offensive player for this to continue, especially since I thought he got good looks. I thought he took shots that he usually makes, especially the threes. He missed some wide open ones. So I think he's going to be fine. I think he bounces back in a big way in game two. Now let's move to the biggest outlier for the Dallas Mavericks. And this is a big statement because Kyrie Irving only scoring 12 points is a pretty big outlier. Luka only had 1 assist. It was a career low for him in the playoffs. And the Mavericks as a whole only had 9 assists. Okay, part of that was they missed some open looks, as I mentioned, 7 of 27 from 3. That happens sometimes. And the other part of it was the way that Boston defended Dallas. Boston gave Luka Doncic the Nikola Jokic treatment. Boston gave Luka the same treatment that UConn gave Zach Edey in the national championship game. They said, Luka, you can score as much as you want. Go ahead. Free runs to the rim. We'll let you get into the matchups that you want. That's fine. But what you're not going to do is allow you to score 30 points and also allow you to dish out 12 assists. They stayed home. They didn't let Luka kick the ball out to the corner for threes. Like, they didn't do that. And there were some really weird moments where Luka would come off of a screen. He'd get downhill. He'd get into the lane. And he would just kind of wait for the help to come. And it never did. And it was really weird seeing Luka in spots where he didn't know what to do, especially when he's, 5 feet away from the basket. And that is an adjustment I think we'll see him make in game two. I think he'll be more aggressive. I think he'll look to score more when he's around the bucket. And that should then trigger more assists. Because look, if Luka goes for 50, which he's more than capable of doing, he went for 73 earlier in the season, that'll really change things up. So I think you can chalk up this game one loss for the Dallas Mavericks to shooting variance in the first quarter, right? Like the Mavs didn't shoot the ball well in the first, and the Celtics did. After that, the game was pretty even. Boston only outscored Dallas by 1 in the final 3 quarters. I think we have a great series in store for us. Dallas doesn't win game ones. They win game twos. They go back, they adjust, and then they come out and they win. That's just what they do. That's my prediction. The Mavericks win game 2. Don't know what the line is. Don't really care. Think it's close, down to the wire. We see a more normal Mavs game where it's close late, and Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic figure out a way to create offense, and that ends up being the difference. So Mavs win game 2, them losing game 1, not a big deal. Don't freak out. More hoops tonight, though. Fever on the road, playing the Mystic tonight at 7:30. Fever GM Lynn Dunn joining the Dan Dockett show today at 1 o'clock to talk, Clark, their upcoming schedule where it starts to get a little bit easier. I'm going to talk about that as well when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Save big money on your next project. Now at Menards. From hitches to ratchet straps and everything in between, we've got your hauling needs covered. Tow Smart designs and manufactures tough, durable steel towing products that resist rust and corrosion. Check out the complete lineup of Tow Smart hitch balls and towing accessories.
My wife and I both, we ended up mildly sick for a few months, and the nasal congestion was probably the worst part. I had like a post-nasal drip, just super congested all the time. We were taking everything we possibly could, but nothing really worked.
Kyrie was miserable until a friend recommended Navage. Navage offers immediate drug-free congestion relief, flushing your nasal passages with refreshing saline and sucking out mucus, germs, and other airborne irritants. Don't live in misery this cold season. Use Navage so you can breathe easier, sleep better, and feel your best right away.
The biggest thing Navage has done has completely cleaned out my nasal passages. It was from the first use. I was able to just clear out anything that was stopping me from breathing correctly. Navage helps me clear the way, literally clear the way, for me to operate better in the rest of my life.
Experience the Navage difference yourself. Navage is available at Navage.com or at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid. Navage, Navage.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, maybe that's on the radio, 1430 AM, 99.5 HDMI2. Maybe you're listening on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download on the App Store or the Google Play Store. Maybe you're watching on Twitter. Follow us there at Ticket1430. So you can watch the live stream, or you can head over to YouTube, search for Indy Sports Ticket, watch us there. Join the lively chat. I think that's a good way to describe it right now. It's popping off, which is always fun. So if you want to be a part of that, you want to be, more integrated into the show, head over to YouTube, subscribe to us there. That way, I can see your thoughts on some of the things that I'm saying. So before I talk about the Fever, I want to take 2 minutes and I want to pitch the College World Series to you. It's a fantastic event. College baseball is a better watch than Major League Baseball, especially at this point in the year. We are into the Super Regionals. Evansville shocks the world as a 4 seed. They get out of their regional, which is a big deal, and now they are set up to face the number 1 seeded Tennessee Volunteers. Evansville, Tennessee today, 3:00. Tune in. It's going to be great. I can't wait. College baseball is truly just the gift that keeps on giving. Once again, it's a better product than Major League Baseball. The guys are throwing heat. There's bad flips. It's a more entertaining game. And so if you have some extra time on your hands, don't have anything else going on, tune in, watch the College World Series because it is truly a fantastic event. Something else that I hope is a fantastic event is the Fever game tonight. They're playing the 0-10 Washington Mystics tonight at 7:30 live, national TV. Ion, I guess that's how you pronounce the channel. Okay, I didn't know that this channel was the thing until they started throwing, WNBA games on there. So I've been thinking about the Fever and this little start and how they're 2-9, and it's not a great start to the season. And so I started looking at the schedule now that, we're about a quarter of the way through the year and just trying to figure out, why are the Fever 8-11? Because this team should be good. They have the last 2 number 1 overall picks, Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark's running mate in the backcourt. She was the number 2 pick 3 years ago. This team should be better. So I'm looking at the schedule. 8 of the Fever's first 11 games have come against a team that's currently in the top 5 of the standings in the WNBA. Okay, the Seattle Storm, the Las Vegas Aces, the New York Liberty, and the Connecticut Sun, who I believe are still undefeated. They've just had a really tough schedule to start the year in terms of their opponents. They've also played 11 games in 20 days. That's absurd. That's really hard to do, especially when you have a relatively new roster. Lynn Dunn, who's going to be on Dan's show today at 1 o'clock, the GM of the Fever, she said that they added some free agents, right, that are playing. And of course, they added Caitlin Clark, who is now the primary piece of this offense. And so there's been this adjustment period. And look, it's tough to adjust when you're playing against the best teams in your league. It is. Okay. And things are going to get ugly when that's happening. So now they've hopefully settled in a little bit. And especially because now this easier part of their schedule is coming. Tonight, they're playing the Mystic, who are 0-10. Worst team in the league. Worse than the Fever, okay? And including tonight, 7 out of their next 9 games for the Fever are against other teams that are not one of the 5 best teams in the league. Okay, this is their opportunity to turn the tide a little bit. Okay, the Fever have a chance to, go on a winning streak. The Fever have a chance to rewrite kind of the way that we view them. Just talking to Lynn Dunn and talking to Tony East, who comes on the show on Wednesdays at 11:20 about the Fever. Look, the Fever weren't supposed to compete for a title this year. Their goal was to be, the 7 or the 8 seed. Okay, they just wanted to make the playoffs. That was the goal. Seems like a fair goal given how much talent they have accumulated over these past couple years. And, right now, they're clearly not on pace to do that, but they have an opportunity to turn the tide. Not only for their season, but also for how people view them and how people view the WNBA. Because so much, dare I say all of, the WNBA coverage hasn't had to do with basketball. It's all been about drama and these non-basketball related things. And look, if that's what your league's going to be about, then that's not sustainable. It's not, because if people are talking about the drama of your league, then they don't care about the games. They don't, and that's an issue. The WNBA needs for people, consumers, to care about the games because that is how leagues make the majority of their money. They make their money off of TV deals. For example, the NBA, $6 billion coming their way off of these TV deals. And when teams or when, shows like mine and people casually aren't talking about the games, then that can be an issue for the sustainability of the league. So for the Fever, if they can go 6-3, 5-4, 4-5 even during this stretch where they're playing against, some lesser opponents, they're not playing the Las Vegas Aces and they're not playing the New York Liberty or the Seattle Storm or the Connecticut Sun, then they could start to kind of turn the tide a little bit. And that would be big, right? And obviously, Caitlin Clark needs to play well during this as well if they want people to continue to tune in and to watch. So I'm intrigued to see how they look tonight when they're playing a team that's actually, on their level, right? And Caitlin Clark needs to start having bigger games if the WNBA wants to keep this momentum. Okay? Because, look, that's why people are tuning in. Like I've only been talking about the Fever here, for one, because I'm in Indianapolis, but also because that's why people are watching. Okay? Like people aren't watching the WNBA for Angel Reese or, Asia Wilson or that chick that plays for the Liberty or any of those people. Like people are watching for Caitlin Clark. And if Caitlin Clark doesn't start to produce at the level that people expect her to, people will tune out. People will stop watching. Okay, some people aren't even watching right now because people have busy lives. It's like why, it's like some people, unless you are can't miss TV, unless you're, Patrick Mahomes or peak Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady back in the day or LeBron James or whoever, unless you are peak TV, can't miss TV, people aren't going to watch because people have busy lives. People have kids. People have spouses. Like life just gets busy. And like if you're playing at 7:30 on a Friday night and I've got, a family or just other responsibilities in general, then you have to be something extra for me to carve out time for you. Right? I think that's kind of how most people operate when it comes to watching sports. And look, Caitlin Clark's the draw. And if she's going to continue to score, 12 points on like 30% shooting and 7 turnovers, and then people aren't going to tune into that because I think a lot of people right now are just box score watching. They're like, oh, she had an okay game, whatever. But if she starts, scoring 28 points on, 48% shooting and she dishes out 9 assists on top of that, then she can grab people's attention again to a point where people actually want to sit down and watch them play basketball. Okay? Like that's the big thing, right? Like the Fever and the WNBA as a whole need people to buy into the actual basketball that's being played because I don't think that people are doing that right now. So if the Fever can figure out a way to turn around, go 6-3 or 5-4 over this stretch with Caitlin Clark playing well, then I think that the coverage of the WNBA will be way more pleasant because, that's what I want, and something else that I'd really like to see tonight. I would like to see, Caitlin Clark goes to the rim, gets fouled, ends up on the ground. I would like to see, Aaliyah Boston, who is pretty vocal about being excited to have Caitlin Clark as her teammate. I wouldn't mind seeing Aaliyah Boston, like help her up off the ground. There's a video out there when the Fever drafted Caitlin Clark. They had the watch party at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And, the place erupts and all the players for the Fever rip off these like sweatshirts to reveal that they were all wearing Caitlin Clark jerseys. I mean, if you're excited for her to be your teammate, then please act like it. Please pick her up off the floor. Please, seriously. And if somebody cheap shots her, how about you help her up and then get in the other person's face, please? How about we stand up for our teammates? I think that's a basic thing that people expect in professional sports because you're supposed to be a tight-knit group. That's what you're supposed to be. And if you aren't, then you aren't going to beat anybody. You aren't. It's not going to happen. Now, Indianapolis, I love living here, but there are some people here that are just ridiculous, especially in the media. Dan has talked about it. I've hit on it a little bit, but last week I did my first big thing on the indie local media. And, I like doing lists. I've got top 10 Tuesday. It's the thing we do on Tuesdays where, we list out the 10 best of fill in the blank. If you have ideas at _ Jonathan Smith, it's my Twitter handle. Tweet them at me there if they're good. I've got a whole note on my phone dedicated to these types of things. So send them my way. If it's good, I'll probably do it at some point. I also do another thing called Fun List Friday, which is a little more relaxed. Like last week we did the best chubby white athletes of all time in celebration of Luka making the NBA Finals. Last week I also did a Fun List Friday of the worst indie blogger boy articles. And I said that I would update the list every week. And basically the list is, the dumbest headlines from these indie blogger boys at Horseshoe Huddle or Stampede Blue or, all of the other ones. So here were last week's headlines. Colts offensive line revitalized into one of the NFL's best 5 fronts. That's not true. The sack numbers were better last year because Gardner Minshew did a good job of getting rid of the ball quickly. He got rid of the ball in under 2.75 seconds on average. So that's why the sack numbers went down, not because of the offensive line. Next headline, the Colts saved a lot on Michael Pittman contract extension. That's not true. They were going to pay him around $20 million no matter what. That's kind of the idea that he set forth earlier in this week when he talked to the media. Next headline, Colts predicted to have breakout offensive star, and it's not Anthony Richardson. They did a whole thing on Jelani Woods and how athletic he is and all that fun stuff, I guess. And, there's a million tight ends for this Colts roster, man. He's not going to get the majority of the snaps. My favorite one that I can't read without laughing. Every time I look at it, if I'm ever sad, I'm having a bad day, I just think about this Horseshoe Huddle article where it's titled, Why Colts fans should keep an eye on running back Evan Hull in 2024. Yes, please tell me why I should keep in mind the Colts' third-string running back who has 1 career carry for 1 yard and 1 career reception for 6 yards. Please tell me why I should keep an eye on him. In all honesty, if I have to keep an eye on Evan Hull this year, that probably means that the Colts aren't very good. Okay, that's probably what that means. So, yeah, that one's just nonsense. And then the last one was the title was Tyquan Lewis has become a reliable pass rusher, a guy who has like 7 sacks in his career and had 4.5 last year. That is not what I would call a reliable pass rusher. This week, I'm only adding one new article to the list, and it is titled Defensive Lineman Named as Player Colts Should Consider Trading. And it's a whole thing on why the Colts should trade Tyquan Lewis. So after saying that Tyquan Lewis has become a good player, they then say, hey, we should trade him. Oh my gosh. I think it's hilarious. Back and forth, up and down. Oh man, it's really funny just listening to all the different things that the people around here write and think and say. And I think it's funny. John Buzzard, great point made. He just said that the Colts are really good at maintaining perfect mediocrity, and that's kind of what they feel like, right? They feel like a team that's going to go 9-7, 9-7, 9-8, 8-9, somewhere in there, maybe 10-7. That's where I have them at. But look, I think we all know, based off of the Colts' moves this year, so much of their season success is going to be based on, does Anthony Richardson stay healthy, right? Once again, him not throwing yesterday, not a big deal. Not really a big deal. We got 3 months until the season. Anthony Richardson should be good to go by that point. Speaking of good to go, Dan Dockich has a monster in place today. Lynn Dunn at 1. His horse racing guy, I think his name's Vinny. He's coming on at 1:30. And then Rob Dibble, who does radio up in Connecticut, he's coming on. He's going to talk the potential of Dan Hurley leaving to go be the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, which would be interesting. I gave my thoughts on that yesterday. Feel free to go back. If you go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and you search for The Real Jonathan Smith Podcast, yesterday's show will pop up. You can hear my thoughts on that there. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you head over to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're trying to build that. We want you guys preferably to watch on YouTube. That way you can be involved in this epic Colts, or this epic chat, right? One of my buddies, his name's Cam. He's been in the chat today. He's like, I got to start being in here more because this is fun. And it is. So head over to YouTube, subscribe there. Indies Sports Ticket. That's where you can find us to, watch the stream live on there. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune into The Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll be back on the air again on Monday from 10 to noon, talking about who knows what. There's so much going on in Indianapolis and in the sports world in general right now that I don't even know what I'm going to talk about on Monday. Can't wait. Talk to you guys then. The Dan Dockett Show is coming up here in about 4.5 minutes.